Welcome to Connections and Conversations, an advocacy arena podcast, working to increase civic engagement and strengthen our communities. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Connections and Conversations. And I am so thrilled to be here today with some wonderful people. And we're going to dig right in. I want to start by allowing them to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what they do, and then we'll get into the conversation. And I'll start with you, Adrienne. Ladies first.
Good afternoon. My name is Adrienne Young. I'm the Executive Director of the LifeWorx Project. We offer practical supports for everyday people, and I am a substance use case manager for a local community services board.
Awesome. And AJ, your fabulous partner, tell us a little bit about what you do besides being an awesome partner to Adrienne.
Absolutely. So my name is AJ Young, and I am the Director of Outreach for the LifeWorx Project. And I work for the University of Virginia as an electronics technician, and just happy to be here.
All right. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Ron, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting me to this. I'm really looking forward to the discussion. Yeah, my name is Ron Reeves. I am a clinical therapist. I reside since last November in Mexico. So I do teletherapy. All of my clients are in Maryland. All of my clients are Medicaid clients. So with what has been happening lately, there's been a lot of worry and concern. And before that, started with Baltimore City DSS in 2006 in child welfare. So a lot of experience with social work in the Baltimore City area. And so still keeping in contact with a lot of people and talking about the fallout from what has been happening. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I just want all of you to know that all of you are people that I have met in my social media connections and have found you to be just truly remarkable people doing truly remarkable things, which is why I wanted to gather you all here today to talk a little bit about it, because I think that there is an urgent need for the things that you do right now. And I just want to kind of, again, go around the table a little bit, so to speak, to, like we know there are a lot of things that are going on around immigration, education, all sorts of things. He's spinning out EOs and they're changing policies and things. At the end of the day, there is an impact that occurs on the ground, in communities, in people's real lives. Adrienne, tell me what you're seeing from the work that you do as a result of this new regime that has come into being and the things that they're doing.
Well, with the folks that are coming to the LifeWorx Project organization and our River City Breadbasket Client Choice Food Pantry, what we are seeing is a lot of fear and a lot of just lack of confidence in supports that folks had been pretty much used to, almost taken for granted. From our immigrant community, we have seen some of our clients stop coming because they are afraid of being pinpointed by ICE officials or someone else in the community. We actually had a gentleman who came to our Client Choice Food Pantry who said that when he went to apply for a driver's license, the person behind the desk at the DMV said that she was going to call ICE on him.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. He stayed away from the breadbasket for about 2 weeks after that, just because he was afraid. I think for some, they recognize the change because there is a hyper normalization of the gaslighting that has kind of been going on. And for others, they are flying below the radar, just not even paying attention, just going on as if everything is normal. I think it really does depend on where you are and the lived experience that you are bringing to the table right now, as far as whether or not you are aware, cognitively aware of what is going on and how it is affecting you. I think some people know, and they know it to their core, and they are concerned. I think some people are whistling in the dark.
Oh, I think you're right. AJ, tell me what you are seeing with the work that you do.
Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback on what Adrian said,
Mhm.
and I like to kind of come from the direction of the level of apathy
Mhm.
that I see from many of our clients who aren't necessarily in tune with what is happening politically in the world, which translates into policies that will directly impact their lives. While we are grateful to be able to provide this resource for the community, I often say that one of the things that happens along with us being in a food desert is a desert of information and understanding. And that desert has perpetuated itself in just about every quarter of what we call the valley. And so we have many folks who do not understand policies that are being stripped right now that have been in place for years that will directly impact their lives. And so as the director of outreach for the LifeWorks project, and Adrian shares this sentiment as well, it's imperative, I believe, for us to educate and inform people and share with them the importance of preparing and sharing with your legislators that what they are doing is going to impact their lives, right? We have folks who are getting just $23 in SNAP. That cannot sustain you, right? The other part of that is because we are where we are, we want people to understand that we need your voices at city council meetings if, in fact, what you deem us to be as being imperative for you to have, we need you to show up and share with people that this is a resource that's never been here before and we need it to remain. And so it is trying to educate those who just don't know. There are many people who say, I don't do politics, but I always say politics has been doing you for years. That is what I am seeing. That is something that, along with voter registration and folks not wanting to participate in the political process, all of these things have come to a head. What we are seeing, quite honestly, are the ramifications of not being involved in politics.
Absolutely. Ron and I had a little bit of a conversation about that this morning when I talked to him about, me being kind of considered an alarmist sometimes because, I'm heavy into information because it is important because what I see is the fact that and understand is that we're in an information war and it really is a terrible war that has a lot of casualties and not a shot has been fired, but people are dying. So I am a stickler for information, for facts, and also, what I do, I really do try to bring people in to motivate them and inspire them to get engaged. Because as you said, apathy, people just kind of roll along as if these things have always been here, they will always be here, not recognizing the work, the sacrifice that has gone into a lot of policies and things that took place, before some of us got here to ensure that we could have these things. And it's just important as citizens, I think. We live in a democracy, a democratic republic. Okay. That means it is only as strong as we, the people, participate in it, and it requires us. And certainly at the local level. So, Ron, I want to give that same question to you. What are you seeing? What is the fallout, the situation that you're seeing with this current regime that has only been in office now like 60 days or so?
Yeah, I got to be honest, it's a lot of surprise. It's a lot of shock. I will say that there are people who typically would not have been paying attention that are now, really starting to pay attention. And it's interesting what Mr. Young was talking about. In social work, we certainly have those roles in terms of what we're doing for the community. There are some who are, informers, even in, social services. There's family preservation, which focuses on sort of keeping things together. And then there's child protective services, which is more focused on abuse and neglect. So I have to say in both roles, because I am still involved in social work. I'm still making policy decisions and things like that. But mainly it is the therapy work that I'm noticing much more stress. The first season of Trump, it was more so about, oh my gosh, what crazy thing is he going to tweet today? And people just had sort of this nervous angst. This particular time, and with there only being like what, it hasn't even been 3 months yet, there are people who are legitimately worried because not only are they seeing more what is on the news, they are hearing more from people in their communities about what is going on, or they know a family member who lost their job. I mean, again, I'm in Maryland. So we are very close to Washington, D.C. A lot of the particularly Black wealth that has been built up in Maryland is because of those federal jobs, sort of getting people to understand that a lot of us went toward those jobs because the private sector was still free to be able to discriminate. And federal jobs offered a lot of protections on, not being able to discriminate based on race and gender and sexual orientation and things like that. So you're hearing a lot more of people being anxious, people just, the uncertainty of, are they going to lose the current benefits that they have? What is it going to mean? We have had, I think when initially that whole Medicaid portal thing, when they froze the funding, I spent a day probably in 4 or 5 emergency meetings. I had to move my therapy clients around because we could not get access to the Medicaid portal. It affected all of the 50 states. So when people talk about, well, blue states may be able to do some things if you have Democratic legislatures to provide some insulation, but this is going to affect everyone. This is going to affect everyone regardless of what state that you're in. So just trying to make sure that people, have the coping skills that they need, because you do still have to lead lives, and just trying to get them to compartmentalize the thing, trying to explain to them without getting too deep into the weeds, because ultimately our sessions are about trying to give them clinical information about how to make sure that their symptoms are not as exacerbated. But the politics has sort of bled over into everything. So trying to inform, but also mainly focus on controlling what you can control to make sure that their functioning isn't too impacted.
Awesome. So we're talking about how it's impacting people's lives, and certainly fear is at the top of it. And what you guys do, you're the helpers, and you're trying to calm their fears in the area of your therapy and social work, giving them coping skills and these things. Let me ask you this from a personal standpoint, as helpers at a time when people are looking to you. How is this affecting you? And what are you doing to maintain yourself and self care so that you can be the helpers that you are? And I'll go around the room again: Adrienne, AJ, and then Ron.
AJ and I live in a rural area. And so there's a wide swath of political beliefs, personal beliefs, but mostly the folks that I am working with. I work for a local clinic. So a lot of our clients are Medicaid recipients, and our nonprofit, of course, we're in the charitable giving, charitable food business. It's kind of the same folks. And it is personally painful to me to see people sleepwalking a little bit. I am blessed in that, I have a husband where he will listen to me talk, 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 so that I can get it out. But it is painful to see people just not paying attention. If I did not have AJ, we say this to each other all the time, you would go crazy. We have, a person who comes to the breadbasket who was talking about the last president and how, this president is going to do so much better. And she's so glad that he got rid of all that DEI stuff. I'm like, Miss Smith, Everything about your life is DEI. You're a woman, you're disabled, you live in Section 8, you're at a food pantry, you get SNAP. Now, I didn't rattle it off quite in the same tone that I shared it with you, but I did let her know everything about your life is DEI. And even though where you are getting your information is equating DEI with Blackness, let's be honest,
Mm.
there are many things, especially for a Caucasian person, that DEI is providing for her.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I care about you guys because I know that people are leaning on you and this is tough. And I just provide information and an opportunity, for people to come together to talk. So I think about people who are in your professions a lot.
Mhm.
And I have concerns for you because, like I said, you have a weight on your shoulders. So I think it's a good thing for us to, talk about that and to consider that. So, AJ, I'm going to go to Ron because I know that probably you're a little bit helped by Adrienne. So, Ron, tell me a little bit about what you're doing to sustain yourself because I know you participate in a lot of our good trouble chats and you are always stressing the importance of self care. So, tell me a little bit about how you are caring for Ron so that Ron can help so many other people.
Yeah, and it is important because, and I learned my lesson from season one where it kind of almost broke my mental health because it was every day, whenever the television was on, it was on either CNN or MSNBC. Because back then, this was before the pandemic, I would get home, turn on the news. And so at that time, it was sort of like, I forget maybe who was on at the particular time, but all the way up, through midnight, it was pretty much watching the news. What is going on? What is he going to do? And I said for, season two, for season two, I wasn't going to do that.
Mm,
And I haven't. So, now I essentially get it's not that I've stopped watching the news. It's that, I mean, obviously, the fourth estate they never really knew how to cover him, but I also see now that they're bending the knee and they are normalizing
yes.
this. So I'm like, I'm not going to, like, there's no point in watching the way that they're covering it because they're adding a sense of legitimacy to it. So, I make sure that I go to spaces like Fire Pit, like your space on Mondays. I co-host the morning commute on Spoutable Monday through Friday. That's basically where I get most of my news. But just outside of that, I start my days with a morning walk with mindfulness, making sure that my senses take over. What do I smell? What do I hear? What do I feel? What can I see? And that just sort of provides a balance for me to start off the day. Part of the reason, and I knew that the United States was never going to be a place that I certainly knew that I wasn't going to retire there. So moving to Mexico, part of it was about wellness and mental health. Where I lived in Maryland, I had to get in my car and drive everywhere, I'm in a sort of beach resort town. So, I got my paddle board, I go out and do my paddle boarding things that I can walk to. I don't have to get in my car and drive to everything. So I'm just much more physically healthy. I'm getting back into playing tennis again. So that is how I am, making sure that I'm able to get through this by compartmentalizing because when you're in this field and when I was a division manager, one of the things that I told my staff every year to take was secondary traumatic stress training because as helping people, you don't realize how much you take on other people's stressors and traumas. You can't talk to people and hear their traumas and work in these sorts of fields every day and not absorb it somehow. You have to be able to make sure that you have a separation and that you're able to find a balance. So that's what I do. And one of the things I tell people all the time is that people have to learn, like, we're used to dealing with trauma. You have to make a choice to accept joy and to be joyful.
Yes.
Because it can be very easy to sort of like, the great John Lewis quote, in terms of it's easy to slide down into a sea of despair.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a conscious choice that you have to remember the things that you are grateful for, even if it's just, thank you that it's another day that I was able to rise and continue to go on with my day. Celebrate those things. Celebrate the accomplishments, big or small, that you do have, because you do have to find that balance. But it's going to be difficult. And particularly, I feel like it's most important in this particular season because it is going to be us that's going to have to clean this stuff up.
Mm.
We were already cleaning things up from the first time, and now there will be such just a deterioration of I tell people all the time, as because I started as a case manager in Baltimore, when you're driving down the street, you pass these buildings that seem innocuous. You don't realize this is a nonprofit agency. This is a shelter place, this is a transitional house. You don't recognize these programs when you're there, but baby, you're going to miss them when they're gone. And so for us who will be tasked with already being overworked and underpaid and dealing with a lack of resources, we've got to make sure that we as a social work and helping community are reaching out to each other and making sure that we are there to sort of lift each other up, because we're going to have a lot of work to do to clean this stuff up once the page is turned. And as you say, we will get through this, but I believe that it is going to be so bad once the dust settles that, whew, it's going to be a big task.
Absolutely. So, AJ, I want to go to you with that same question about how you are taking care of yourself for the work that you do.
Well, I got to tell you, I feel like I had a whole therapy session with Brother Ron.
Isn't he wonderful?
Yeah. I certainly ditto everything that he said. And in addition to that, what Adrienne was sharing, one of the things that we have been conscious about is pulling ourselves away from the work, because she always shares with me, these folks were struggling before we started. So we have to, let's go to the movies, which we did yesterday. Let's go have dinner. Let's go away for the weekend. We often refer to the nonprofit, the LifeWorks Project, as our baby. Folks will say, well, do you guys get to go away much? And I said, well, no, we got the baby. We got to change the baby's diaper. We don't feel comfortable leaving the baby with anyone. And so because of that, it becomes even more difficult for us to say, hey, let's close early. Let's get out of here. Let's go away for the weekend. But it is really important. In addition to what I'm hearing in our nonprofit is working at the University of Virginia, universities all over the country. Ron understands what's happening at Johns Hopkins. UVA is experiencing the loss of DEI programs. I recently reached out to the vice president of diversity, equity, inclusion at the university, a wonderful gentleman that came from Ohio, Black gentleman, and just tried to encourage him, because everyone is feeling the brunt of what is happening, and it's on grounds you can definitely feel this. It's a heaviness from the students, from the staff, certainly from the professors who are endeavoring to do good work. The Office of African American Affairs, is walking through some of the halls there and looking at the multicultural student unions there and wondering, what does this look like a year from now? These students, who are engaging in conversations about inclusivity, what does that look like for them? And now there are groups on grounds to try to help people manage their emotions, much like Ron was sharing. And I think it's even more important for us. And I thought I heard you say this too, Ron, about building community. That is where I have really been locking arms in and wanting to do more of, is at this stage, I feel it's important to build with whoever wants to build. That is the prerequisite. Do you want to build community? And that goes beyond sexual orientation, certainly, color of skin, where you're from. It is about building community with people, because we're going to need each other in this season. That's why I'm so grateful for UD in the space and finding that attraction to somebody who is talking about building community that has been the saving grace for me. And I'm really grateful to that. And I'm looking forward to doing more of that. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. And interestingly enough, you kind of take me into another topic that I would like us to kind of brush up on, talk a little bit about it, because, of course, you provide resources and services to people in underprivileged areas, but you also work for an educational institution, which is really under assault everywhere across the nation. And, as I said earlier, I understand that we are in an information war. And so it's this war on education, the dumbing down. And Ron spoke to how the fourth estate, unfortunately, has gotten lazy and they are not leaning into the purpose. Like they're in the Constitution for a reason because people need good information. And we are in the throes soft fascism that is going toward hard fascism really fast. And I know that sounds crazy to say as an American, as a veteran, for me to say that about my country, it breaks my heart. But this is what it is. So I appreciate folks like you being the helpers, understanding the importance of education. And for me, that's kind of something that I lean into. It's like we all have to do something. No one can sit on the bench right now because essentially we're all on the menu. It's just a matter of time when they get to, the course that includes us, you know. So I want to talk a little bit about, I want to start with Adrienne, what you think about this assault on education, because it's not just whether or not you're in school or at a university, but as you said, people not understanding. Things have been so politicized, that this person didn't understand that she was included in the DEI she hated, you know. So I would love to hear each of your perspectives on the thing around education and people's lack of understanding and what you're doing personally to combat that or to help resolve it.
I think that it's not just education. I feel that they are taking an all out assault on the ability to critically think and give people information so that they can come up to a conclusion on their own. I feel that what we're working with right now, they want us to get to a point where we can't talk at all about what has made this country strong, which is diversity. We can't say certain words. I think there's almost, 150 words that we can't say anymore. One of the words is women. One of the words is Black that you can't say in a federal arena anymore. There was a whole list. There are many, many others. For me, I have spent a lot of time being polite, and I'm still polite, but I'm not going to give people the opportunity to offend my space and not share truth. There have always been people who were brave enough to tell the truth. And just like with Miss Smith, I felt I needed to tell her the truth. People have a lack of knowledge. We have been lazy. We've been spoon-fed from the same books. And so some of it we have come by honestly, but some of it we've just allowed ourselves to be dumbed down. What I am doing is when I have an opportunity, I tell the truth. What is it? Don't cast your pearls before swine. If what I'm saying drops down to the ground and doesn't do any good, and that person doesn't take it to heart, that's not my responsibility. Not saying something when I know that someone is headed in the wrong direction changes me. And so I'm not going to let that happen anymore. I have been very, very polite and trying to keep the peace, only to find out there is no peace to be found when your mouth is shut.
Absolutely.
No peace to be found, Peace is loud.
Yes.
Peace is people talking. Peace is people arguing. Peace is people not agreeing, but deciding, I'm not going to kill you today. That is peace. War is silent. That's when we stop talking. That's when we stop sharing. That's when there's no exchange of information or ideas. And so I'm always going to err on the side of peace.
I hear you. I love that. AJ, what about you?
Yeah, I am certainly concerned about what I consider to be, in my opinion, two tsunamis of this dismantling of education because, we remember not too long ago, COVID shut down the learning, so to speak, and there's a level of learning loss that many of the students have experienced that we still haven't come to terms with what that looks like, right?
Yeah, my granddaughter started kindergarten during COVID. So she did
Oh,
kindergarten,
my.
virtual kindergarten. Can you imagine?
Right. That's exactly what I mean. And now we have an intentional pulling away of the recorded, the records, so to speak, of so much important information that will shape not only the minds of toddlers, but certainly in higher education. And so I often look at this period now for those of us who have been studying for years, who have been absorbing information and have been sharing for so long, it will be up to us. We will be the libraries, right? For much of what the younger folks and older folks do not know, we will be the resource. And so, as Adrian said, it will be more imperative for us to be the truth tellers and to begin to speak truth to power because this is the season, right? As Ron said, this is season 2 that we're in. And now what has been deposited in us, there's an expectation, right, that we will speak that truth, those things that we know to be true, to elevate the culture. And I've gotten to the point where if you're interested, great, but I'm not going to waste my time because there are other people who want what needs to be said.
I hear you.
And so I think this is, I'm reclaiming my time. Let's do what's necessary in this season and do it quickly because we've been waiting all our life for this moment, I feel, and now is the time to give what we've got inside of us.
Oh, beautiful.
Mhm.
I love that. Yes, we are the keepers of the truth and we will speak the truth, the griots, as they say. And it is incumbent upon us to hold that and to pass it along because they're trying to disappear it. But as long as we hold it within us, it can't be. And we continue to pass it on. So I love what both of you said. It is something too that I refuse to. I am a kind person. I am a respectful person, but like I am direct and I don't pussyfoot around the truth anymore. Like I'm not playing with you. When I know that you are ill informed or you are trying to pass misinformation off to someone else, I get in my warrior state. Okay, I will fight you with information because, as Adrian said, critical thinking has been lost and it has been done us on purpose. And it's not that I need you to agree with me, but I need you to deal with the set of facts and information and use your own critical thinking skills to come up with reasonable thoughts around that. And it's so critical. And that's essentially how they have been able to do a lot of the things that they have done is because they have dumbed down our society where now people really expect things to be spoon fed to them and they don't check, they don't care, they don't want to have to think. And we need to become critical thinkers and doers again. So, Ron, I want to hear from you what you feel, see, and think about this thing that, they're doing education wise and how it's affecting us.
Well, I think that it is a culmination of what they have been doing with education. This just didn't start.
Amen.
They have been going after education for quite some time. It is really going to hurt. Black students are going to feel it, I think, the most. It's going to hurt Black K through 12 students the hardest because you're talking about gutting offices that Black and low income students depend on the most, which are offices that handle civil rights protections for minority and disabled public school students and federal student loans for college as well as like research and data collection on school equity. And so you're talking about, I think the stats I was looking at was like the cuts are, impact like 26 million kids from low income families, 7.5 million kids with disabilities, 13 million kids who get financial aid for college, even more. And so this regime, this fascist regime, has really turned children into fodder in his unnecessary culture war. Just sort of because, for whatever reason, he doesn't like, these people. And unfortunately, we did fall into the low hanging fruit with this culture war that is now going to have real life consequences for millions of people. You're talking about programs like, I believe what is it called? The Institute of Education Sciences. So, for in the Department of Education, that's their research arm. And that has been instrumental in advancements around, student outcomes in reading and math and advancing research on effective reading instruction. So they have four research centers. It operates research around special education, education statistics, and they were really driving educational practices and policies that provided like cutting edge research for the field. Those cutbacks are going to have such an impact on some gains that we were actually starting to see. You hear from people, well, you look at certain areas and you look at, kids who aren't able to, read. Maybe they need to, maybe they need to close the Department of Education, sort of not understanding all of what the Department of Education encompasses. Sure. Are there problems in education? Are there problems in certain areas? Yes, but you have to look deeper in terms of funding because it's certain areas where they're not providing enough funding. You got some schools that get the newest books, the newest laptops, and you've got other schools where the books continue to fall apart and the school is falling apart in and of itself. It's very layered, and this is why you have to encourage people, get involved in your local politics. Get involved in your local politics. You cannot blame 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for the school around the corner falling apart. You have to make sure that you're involved at all levels. When I lived in Harford County, and they were trying to get rid of African American studies in their schools. I don't have any kids, but I made sure that my voice was heard so that that policy did not go in. You have to get involved because I will say the Department of Education is something that, and this is again, making sure that you understand what is symbolic and, what can have meaningful impact. Now, obviously, it can have meaningful impact, but the Department of Education has to be shut down by Congress. And so that's also part of the educating that we need to do in terms of the community. And so while they have, talked about wanting to get rid of this stuff and while they have thrown out the first wrecking ball, there are steps that parents and students and activists can take to try to stop this from happening. You are seeing a sort of uprising, and that uprising needs to come from certain folks because we knew that stuff wasn't going to hit the fan until it started affecting certain folks. But every district is different. So districts might be serving more students that are Title I eligible than others. Some districts have certain programs that require a little bit more engagement with the Department of Education. So, you know, join your local community, join your, like, for instance, I'm part of Maryland Democrats and I'm also part of Harford County Dems. So even though I'm in Mexico, like, I'm still involved. I still make sure that I, attend Zoom things. I'm still getting information. A lot of it is going to have to be, and unfortunately, the lesson from all of this may be that you can't be complacent about your government. This may be the thing that we have to go through for people to wake up and not be so nonchalant about letting government dictate and you just, there are millions of people who are eligible to vote that don't have roadblocks who just simply don't get involved. Even if you didn't like your presidential choices, don't not vote in your local elections. If you want to skip the presidential, fine, but those amendments and judges and who is representing you at the local level is very important. Go to your commissioners' meetings. Those are the ones who determine the budget for your area. So there is a way that, we can certainly fight back. We obviously know that part of this shock and awe is part of the plan. that Steve Bannon talked about. Let's just throw everything out there. The courts will be difficult to see what to keep up for.
Flood the zone.
Right. But this is an opportunity to sort of get people more engaged, more involved, and to inform them so that hopefully when we do build this thing back, because I believe that, or at least I'm hoping that we will be able to, that it is back better, because it sure seems like this whole thing was a house of cards. I mean, again, the Constitution at the end of the day, it was kind of an agreement. It was like a gentleman's agreement. Here's your democracy. Let's see if you can keep it. But it requires people of honor to keep it together. And so when you have a regime in with a bunch of dishonorable people, this is what you can get. And so it's a tough lesson that people are going to have to learn. But people are really going to find out just how much of our lives are subsidized by the federal government. And so while there will be a lot of harm that will take place, I do see this as an opportunity to enlighten, to educate, to inform, to make sure that this crap doesn't happen again.
Amen to that. I love it. And yes, and I do see, because again, the mission of Advocacy Arena is to increase civic engagement and, whatever that takes to get people engaged. And I love having conversations with folks like you who definitely get it, who understand, who are doing that work in your own way in your own individual communities. And I do think that really sometimes, even though we're going through these awful things, that sometimes it's in the midst of these crises that people learn valuable lessons that can help us to become better, stronger, citizens, and, to build back better, to strengthen our democracy in the places where we see now that it was so weak. It was, able to be undone in this way. So, with that being said, I have really enjoyed discussing these matters with all of you. And as we come to a close, I would like to go around the table, so to speak, just to offer you an opportunity, each of you an opportunity for some closing thoughts, whatever it may be, the work that you're doing, where you see things going, the hopes that you have. And we'll start again with Adrienne and AJ and Ron.
I think as dark as it may feel right now, I have hope. I do. We have two granddaughters, and I have to have hope for them. What I would encourage people to do is, like you said almost at the beginning, is look for the helpers. There are other people that you can link arms with and support and edify and educate yourself, because like I said before, we've all learned misinformation. It was spoon fed to us. And I cannot tell you at the ripe old age of almost 60, the things that I have had to unlearn, find out about my own self, my own people, my own history. It's okay to say no. Strengthen your no, because sometimes you have to take care of yourself. It's okay to not, but after you've had that moment of respite, find some folks that you can link arms with, and let's keep it moving forward.
Amen. I love it. AJ, what about you? Closing thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, I got to say this conversation has really been rich. I have really enjoyed it thoroughly. And I would say when I look back on history, and I do believe that history can and does inform your future, it helps me to understand that none of this should really be a surprise. I know that when you are in the moment, the initial shock of what is happening is like, oh my God, what is happening now? But in every instance where there has been progression, there is backlash. It just systematically happens. And so when I look back on, as Ron mentioned, Brother Lewis, and thinking about the things that they endured during periods of getting the Civil Rights Bill passed, Voting Rights Act bill passed, here comes more backlash. Here comes voter suppression. We had 8 years of President Barack Obama, and then look what we got. And so I feel like sometimes negative energy is what it takes to bring people together. to build community. And certainly we don't want it like that, but many times that is what it takes to get people to say, we have to come together and fight this as a unit and take back our power. Because I often share with many folks, there are more of us, I believe, that believe in truth than not. There are more of us than those who are in places and positions of power. It is up to us to push back and say, we are the ones that you should be hearing. We are the ones that dictate what policy is in this country. And so as much as it is discouraging, I'm also encouraged too. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. I totally agree with that. Yes, we are the change we have been looking for. All right, Ron, closing thoughts, my friend.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for including me in on this. It's always great to also talk to, those who are in a helping field. And it's like we who do this kind of work are, we're not looking for kudos and adulation. There's something within us that we are in terms of whether it was how we were raised or just something that calls us to doing this kind of work. And it's difficult work. It is. Like I said, taking on other people's issues and traumas and whatnot. I just feel like, and I do feel hopeful. I mean, I sort of meander back and forth between how dark it will get. I ultimately do feel like we will turn the page, but AJ was saying, make no mistake, we'll be here again. We'll be here again
It's a
because
cycle.
exactly. As we start to get these things back, there will always be an attempt to make sure because there's just that element up there of, well, if you're gaining, somehow I'm losing, instead of the attitude that we can all win together. This is just the beginning. I think I'm sort of, as we were talking about in the fire pit, I have this calmness about me, but I think it is just, I know that I have to pace myself because this is going to be a long haul. And I can't chase everything that's out there now when it's not even 3 months in, when this man still has 3.5 years left. We hope that's all that he's got left. It's like, yeah. And I'm trying to tell people, I'm like, you guys got to stop. I'm like, it's not even 3 months in and you guys are already spiraling out. Like, I understand, but you've got to manage it. And that's what I'm basically in my therapy telling people, like, you've got to be able to pace yourself. Yes, there is reason to be alarmed and panicked and anxious, but that's what they want.
Mhm.
And so that's why that whole talk about building community is so necessary because we are all going to need each other to get through this. And kind of like right now, I'm at the point where it's like, yeah, I really don't care. Even if people who may have voted for him and are kind of waking up and was like, oh my gosh, because we do realize that there were a lot of people that were fed misinformation. If you want to get on the side of like, I was wrong. I want to help you rebuild this democracy back and sort of get educated about what I was misinformed on, then come on and join the train because we are going to need all kinds of folks to sort of rebuild this thing back to where it was. And like I said, hopefully make sure that we put some stronger guardrails in place so that it will be more difficult for someone else to come the next time to try to tear this stuff down. So community, and again, ultimately, like, you got to take care of yourselves with, I'm always going to emphasize self-care because this is just the beginning. There's a lot of work that's going to have to be done, and you can't be wiped out this early on. I'm sure you're going to have your days where you're going to feel it, where you're going to be, where you're going to feel like maybe giving up or, is it worth it? And those are the times where you have to allow yourself to maybe be in that feeling for a day or two, take a break to recharge your batteries and then, get back into the fight.
Wonderful. Well, again, I just want to thank all of you for joining me in what I have felt is a very needful and important conversation for people like you who are doing important, needful work at this time. And we know that it is darkest before the dawn. We are going to be in this for a while. And as you said, we cannot fall apart this early in the fight. We have to stay together, keep our wits about us, and it's okay. We don't have to pretend that we're not afraid or that things don't bother us. We can do that, but we don't have to be stuck there. So I love having these conversations with folks like you who understand that and who are working to help other people understand it.
Absolutely.
So I just want to thank you all for sharing a bit of your Sunday with me and some great information. I can't wait to have another opportunity perhaps to talk to you again, because I value your expertise and your friendship. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful.
Pleasure meeting you, Ron.
Thank you. You as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Connections and Conversations. This is one of many wonderful interviews that we bring to you to help connect you to a larger community of advocates and change makers across the country. You'll get a glimpse into the various ways people are making an impact in their communities. My hope is that it will inspire you to get engaged in some small way as well. We can't all do everything, but at this moment in history, we can all do something. What are you doing? One of the things you can do is to continue to listen, subscribe, and share this Advocacy Arena podcast. You can also join and support the growing grassroots Advocacy Arena community in other ways. Join our weekly live chats hosted on Spoutable every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to our Substack to get great articles on important topics and exclusive access to extended interview conversations. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We've got some exciting programming lined up. And keep listening to our regular podcast episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, subscribe and give us that all-important 5-star review.